what we are talking about happened only after the change of seats in the Senate. That is when hell was let loose, and all sorts of allegations came up. Only after the change of seat in the Senate and change of the committee, which my senators know happen from time to time. And said to have happened on the 8th of December, a day to my birthday, which was celebrated in the stadium in 2023. So from 8th of December 2023, I never heard, my wife never heard, no Nigerian never heard, even the husband never heard any issue of sexual harassment until our committee was changed, and then our seat was changed, and she went on. Have you ever wondered the trauma caused by that same woman on the other people she had accused in the past? None has been proven so far. You've not wondered. Do you even wonder the trauma caused to the 10th Senate and the image of the Senate with all these useless allegations? I've refrained myself from making a statement. Look at these beautiful women. They've come across me so many times. Have I ever harassed any of you? Or is the person thinking that you're not beautiful? So I don't want to dwell on that. But let me just say that time will tell. If we are in court, the court will decide.
Yesterday, democracy went on holiday. Travesty replaced it. That's what happened yesterday. Yesterday, an institution that is supposed to stand tall was at its lowest ebb yesterday. Yesterday, we had the Senate violate a court order because they wanted to nail Senator Natasha Akpabio. Yesterday, we saw a Senate Ethics Committee that didn't hear from the side of the dramatics personnel in all of this drama, but went ahead to make its conclusion based on other people they spoke to without the dramatics personnel being there. And he reached a verdict of suspension. Yesterday, we saw a Senate that tried to sidestep a very important issue as regards the sexual harassment case raised against the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Yesterday, we saw high-handedness, political brigandage. Yesterday, I wept for my democracy, the same democracy patriots like M.K. Abiola fought for and laid their lives for. But I hope at some point, Nigerians will rise up and will weep no more. Anyway, there's a background to all of this. All we are saying, let investigations be held as regards the sexual harassment case. We saw the ethics committee that made its deposition, but what the ethics committee failed to realize from the video we all watched, that there was actually an altercation. It wasn't just only Natasha, Senator Natasha Akpabio, speaking to the Senate President. He spoke back. He even threatened suspension while the altercation was going on. So it wasn't mute every step of the way. But obviously, if you want to call somebody a bad name and bury him, you look for ways to do that quickly. Anyway, what's the historical antecedents? The people that have been suspended by the Senate that went to court, the court overturned those suspensions, and the Senate did not pursue those cases any longer. Ombakige comes to mind. Ndume comes to mind. The Senate, too, will have to tell us why, despite a court injunction saying, let's stop the process, they went ahead to still do a process that they brought forward just to be able to nail Senator Natasha Akpabio. Like she says, this injustice will not be sustained. Definitely the fight is on, but I weep for Nigeria.
Okay, I think the more serious issues, in my view, will seem to be that, look, there are substantive issues that we can talk about. Yesterday, we had two persons here, Kingdom Okere and Maxwell Opara, both lawyers. While I was giving a summary of their submissions, I said both of them are dealt largely with the procedural and adjectival issues within the province of law in this particular case. It will appear that the Senate of the Federal Republic, the Committee on Public Petitions, Ethics and Privileges, has taken the technical procedural route to say that if you are a member of an organization, an institution, you are bound by the rules of that organization. There are certain things you are not allowed to do, and no one individual can be greater than the institution, because the sum of the integrity of that institution is the collective commitment of the members to those principles guiding that institution. And it was in that regard that I said, in many respects, Senator Naputi Uduaha will seem to have violated some rules of power, some laws of power, as defined in 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. But that's not the big issue here. The big issue is that I hope the parties involved will learn their lessons. If you look at the declaration by the Senate committee, very high-handed. She's not to be seen anywhere near the Senate premises. In fact, the only thing they didn't do was that they didn't define the radius to say we must not see you within this radius around the National Assembly. Our aides would not, enjoy any privileges. She herself will have her security persons involved. She will be on suspension for 6 months. 6 months by their calendar. Half of the time they are sleeping. Half of the time they are on recess. That will be like 1 year. So what does that say about our official function as the representative of the people of Kogi Central, who are the ones who are going to suffer at the end of the day because of this emphasis on drama, on theater, on salacious, representations to the Nigerian public. Now, beyond that also, we had the members of even that Senate laughing at her. The two persons sitting next to her, as she was packing her things, they put off her microphone, they laughed at her. She said that this injustice will not be sustainable. Okay, that remains to be seen. And this will raise questions about, how the Senate goes about its business. But beyond all those details, all the melodramatic things that people will say in that regard, and about what the law says or about what the procedure has been, will be key issues, fundamental issues that have come up. One, about misogyny. I think there's something we teach students when we teach tragedy and other tragic forms. That was the title of the course in those days. Is that a tragic hero can win in losing. And I think that in the case of Akpabio Uduaghan Senator, if you can describe her as a tragic hero, not a villain, she may have won in certain regards, in foregrounding certain basic issues about misogyny in our system, about women representation in politics, about also sexual harassment, whether it has improved or not, that has been thrown out into the public domain. The plight of women in politics, all of these issues will be debated, even by persons who do not know the truth, who do not have the details, and who do not have, what it takes to even do the analysis. Finally, I think that beyond all of this drama, whatever they decide at the end of the day, whether they take Senator Ojiu's or Kalu's suggestion that there should be empathy and that if she apologizes, she should be forgiven, I think, if she apologizes, that will amount to utter humiliation. But that's up to her, if she apologizes or not, is to restore confidence in that National Assembly. We cannot afford to have a National Assembly that is dedicated to consideration of frivolities and impurities. The public today, my own assessment, I may be wrong, will seem to be losing confidence in the National Assembly. If they are not saying one man wants to fight at a sex toy shop, it will be that, some people are constituting themselves into comedians, or there is unending melodrama, or it is that some women are, using too much pancake. This is supposed to be a very serious institution. We need to remind ourselves. And the members of that assembly need to restore confidence in that assembly. We want to hear debates, as Mr. Peter Obi has argued, about serious issues of governance that will move this country forward. Not issues about this woman is seductive, this one has 4 wives, I slept in Obajanas cement factory. Is that place a hotel? Look, all these things, they are just basic distractions. And I think that the members of the National Assembly, both the Red Chamber and the Green Chamber, should be well advised to conduct themselves as serious-minded people. I don't like sitting down here, discussing frivolities, discussing fluffy stuff.
All right. It's been a very interesting past few days. But now we've seen what seems to be a conclusion, but I believe that it's just the beginning of something new. And I think very appropriately said that the Senate is, as an institution, is under the eyes or the radar of a lot of Nigerians, especially with regards to confidence and trust in the institution to be taken seriously. Yesterday, like I said, would have proven an opportunity for the Senate to at least begin to build the confidence in people that it is an institution that follows due process and respects the rule of law. Unfortunately, in many instances or in many things that happened yesterday, they've eroded further the trust of people in the institution. Number one was the way the procedure was done. We had talked about this at length yesterday, even with our guests, around the implications of having a court order to stop the proceedings, at least in the interim, and how that was ignored. We talked about the fact that Senator Natasha Akpabio Uduaghan, in respect of that court order, refused to present herself to the committee, and despite that, the process seemed to have been expedited, and the committee found her guilty on all counts. Number three was that she was seated in the chambers yesterday. And we saw yesterday, for those who watched the live proceedings, which was aired yesterday on Arise TV, we saw how each of the different senators, all men, I must say, were recognized in the House, in the chambers, and were allowed to speak. But she wasn't recognized, and she wasn't allowed to defend herself. So even if she didn't go to the Senate committee, appear before the Senate committee, that was an opportunity for Nigerians to see that at least she was giving a voice in the matter. You cannot be judged or brought before a panel and your voice is not heard at all to consider, even if it's just for the optics. Now, talking about optics, something else that a number of people challenged was the fact that the Senate president, who is a principal actor in all of this, was the judge and jury in his own case. He was the one who presided, despite the calls by notable Nigerians that in the way that the president of the 8th Assembly had done to recuse himself, even if it's just for the optics. And this is why, for some people, it seemed like almost a disregard of the voices of the Nigerian people. And haven't we seen that a number of times when processes happen, not just at the National Assembly, but even in the State House of Assembly? Remember, I talked about how in Lagos State, the people were just onlookers and just viewers as the shows played out without the consideration of the constituents that they sit there on the mandate on which they sit in the chambers to represent. So that was quite unfortunate. But what I would say is that as we continue to take on this matter, is that I keep emphasizing the fact that when it comes to women, now we have one less woman out of the 4 women in the Senate, at least if the suspension goes through. It means we now have only 3 voices of women in the House, in the chambers. Second of all is that the Kogi Central voices has been silenced. And then we then talk about the legality of that, especially citing the case of Omar Agege, where the court ruled that even if the chambers of Senate was meant to suspend, they cannot suspend beyond 14 days. That's another thing that would be looked into in terms of the legality of that pronounced suspension. The final thing I would say is that, yes, people might say that, oh, she lost yesterday, that's Senator Patudogan. But sometimes you lose a battle to win the war. And I believe that this has opened a conversation afresh of women in politics, of gender equity in Nigeria, of how women are perceived. And sometimes when we look at a situation like that, she spoke up for a lot of girls and women who could identify with her story, who didn't even have the opportunity to have a voice when the similar incidents or allegations were made, where you're asked to keep quiet or you're victimized because of your position or your stance on a particular matter. So I do believe that this has just opened broader conversation.